School committee meeting. This is a regular meeting of the school committee, but an abbreviated one because we've got to get a couple things done. And thank you to the school committee members who are here, providing the quorum. The reason we called the meeting is because the Neshoba Regional High School robotics team did very well in their last competition. And they are moving on to the next competition, but our school committee meeting wasn't in time. So thank you all for being here because the policy states that the school committee needs to approve the overnight travel. And then Nicole, just for policy reasons, is there a way to get that out of there?
Yeah, we did talk about it briefly at the last policy meeting about making the chair a proxy in this kind of event.
Yeah, because this is, yeah, all right. But at the same time, we're able to address a couple of quick things that we need to get out, get taken care of, because our next couple meetings are chock full. So the call to order, obviously, sorry, 5:01. Do we have any citizens' comments? 2 citizens' comments. Okay, I will call on you if you're good with that, but as I do in most of our school committee meetings, I'm going to share with you the 2 policies that we have relative to citizens' comments. The school committee meeting is a business meeting. So that's why we don't have interaction with discussions, because we've got to get through a pretty big laundry list generally of issues on the school committee agenda. We've got 2 policies, KE and BEDH. We've got 5 minutes appropriated on the agenda. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We want to hear what you have to say, obviously. Your comment should relate to an item on the agenda. Otherwise, there's no discussion from the school committee about it because it wouldn't be on the agenda. Please keep your comments appropriate, respectful. We will absolutely do the same. We definitely want to hear what you have to say. And I'm not going to go into the rest of it because I think some of you have heard it. But for our newest folk here, why don't you tell us your name and your town and then give us an overview.
Sure. My name is Patrick Mahoney. I'm from Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make a public comment related to the item on the agenda. I don't remember which number it was, but it was about creating an agenda for the next meeting. So adding an agenda item for the next meeting, if I could. I can keep it very short.
Okay, well, agenda items are placed there by the school committee, but if you want to give us an overview of what it is you'd like to say, we'll certainly listen.
Yes, I will be quick. Okay, on the school committee's website, right on the homepage, there are the overarching goals, which were adopted by, I believe, this full committee on September 28, 2016. On it states, overarching goal 5 states that first-rate education is our community's most valuable asset. It further continues noting that family input in terms of protecting that asset is both valuable and, quote, necessary. We recently just voted unanimously to increase the tuition on the pre-K by between 32 and 35%. Did so, for the most part, with no notice to the parents, and at a time of the year when the window has substantially closed for other options. So, to put that into perspective, right, for a full day student, that's $2,200, I think. And for those of us like myself who have 2 of them, that's $4,400. So, the lack of notice on that puts a lot of families paints us into an ugly corner, essentially. What I'm suggesting today is that we afford parents and families that opportunity to provide their input. So the school committee, some members of the school committee are on record as saying that there was no family input taken into that. And then in the letter to the editor that at least was in the Bolton Independent the other day, it talked about hours-long discussion and a passionate debate. It's not clear to me, having reviewed all of the school committee meetings that are available on YouTube, who in those debates represented the families. Yet you do state that it is a core tenet, an overarching goal, that family input be engaged in that conversation. So anyways, just to wrap up real quick then, I would ask that you give you an opportunity to retroactively seek input from families. I've spoken to approximately maybe 45 of the families that are impacted, and none of them said they had any opportunity to put it, I mean, they didn't even know it was coming, so clearly they had no opportunity to give input, but they most certainly would like to. So if you can put that on your meeting agenda for whenever your next meeting is, hopefully before the town meeting, it would be much appreciated. Thank you for the time.
Okay, so I am going to give you some perspective, a little bit of perspective.
I don't think I need perspective.
Hours-long
Like-
discussions did occur. One of the things that I want the public to understand is that the school committee meetings are when the large group gets together, and those are televised. There's an enormous amount of work that's done in the subcommittee meetings that are not televised. You can absolutely see the same, the agendas are always posted and you can see the content there, and you are more than welcome. In fact, we would like to have parents come to that. As far as the timing of the decision, could it have gone out sooner? We voted it on February 27th. The discussions started at the beginning of January. So I think that making sure that, and it's new, and when you're new to this, you don't really know. I mean, even when you get on the school committee, you're kind of not sure exactly how it works. But those subcommittee meetings is where the heavy lifting comes, and then they come up to the school committee. So there were hours-long
And I don't
discussions on
question
it.
the amount of work, sorry.
I think the other thing is, I look at things like what could be done differently going forward. And one of the things I think we could do differently is start the discussion earlier. This year, we weren't able to because of the forensic audit, which was a critical component to the budget, wouldn't have been. But certainly, we could start those discussions earlier, which is a goal of the finance subcommittee anyway. And then have those, the decisions made earlier in the year. As far as the goal of the school committee regarding communication,
that's a separate
is an absolute critical statement, and I respect what you said. I think when you're looking at the various priorities and the various topics of interest in the school committee, there are different groups. Like, we've got a group of folks who are really concerned about the technology infrastructure and where does that sit. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. We've got an enormous amount of people concerned about the high school. What are we going to do with the high school? So it is incumbent upon folks to look at those agendas and see what those topics are. But I do think that there's constant interaction with the community, and we'll look at that and see what more we could do. So I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a comment related from the finance subcommittee. I can just quickly put it out there that we did discuss today as part of our budget calendar, putting together the things like fees. Start that in September. Make those decisions. This year it wasn't possible, as Lorraine said, just because of the situation we were in. But we definitely will be making that plan. So fees, rentals, all those things that are fee-based, we could do ahead of the budget. And that is really the intention. We're putting together policies to make sure that happens.
Great, thank you. Okay, and we have one more.
Hi, Laura Roberts from Holton. I just I saw on the agenda that the finance subcommittee is going to report out today. So I just wanted to ask if it would be possible when you report out to also let us know when your meeting minutes for the last 4 months will be posted on the website. There's no minutes on the website since November 30th, 2016. So I understand that you've done a lot of work in your subcommittees, and for me, I didn't get to go to them. They're not on TV, and I can't read your minutes.
So thank you for that, I appreciate that. So actually,
We approved February and March 22nd today. But we're
Where's
moving forward on
January?
those. It's just the
So-
budget got so out of control for us.
so yeah, that's for us. So we'll save this for the subcommittee report, but all those meeting minutes should be up. I think I even provided direction that those meetings should be up by the next meeting. Especially during budget season, each finance subcommittee or policy or personnel, each meeting minute, each set of minutes from the previous meeting should be reviewed and voted then, especially during finance. Kind of no excuse. Okay, thank you.
Could I just tack on, the meeting materials are also never posted for the finance subcommittee.
Well, I don't know if there are any, but if there are, they will absolutely find their way into that packet. All right, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Okay. So thank you very much. We're going to move now into new business with the robotics overnight travel approval, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Superintendent Clenchey.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. We're thrilled. I watched the robotics team last night as they were continuing to tweak their robot so that it could hit the basket just right with the variety of balls that it had. It was amazing to watch. So they are all set. There are 24 students heading off to the main New Hampshire area. There are 4 chaperones, and this is pretty much a standard for what's happened every year. So this is nothing new, to be honest with you.
Okay, so you need,
I will move that we accept the robotics overnight field trip travel on
we've got 2 of them, Jen.
March 30th to April 1st and
April 5th.
April 5th to April 8th.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you so much. Okay, old business. Cole, Susan's not here. Are you going to take this one? Policy.
Actually, and Anne Marie, I think, is happy to come to the
Oh,
table
well,
and join
come on
us too
up.
to act as a resource and a support.
A resource.
Bring your own chair.
Canadian in her.
No.
It just sounds more glamorous.
It sounds more glamorous. Hello. Okay, I'm turning it over to Nicole and Anne Marie. Thank you.
Take it away.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Policy ADDA1 about the fingerprints really does comply as it's written with the statute. Because it says that it has to be, that's fingerprints for the employees, and it's discretionary for volunteers and chaperones, except that in that first sentence there was a little bit of a typo glitch. So the words "shall be obtained" fell out of it, so it wasn't really a sentence, it was just a bunch of words. But if you put those in there, then
It makes
that makes
sense.
sense. That's right. Where the beef was, I think, was in the implementation of it. What's going to be discretionary and what's not going to be discretionary. I just handed you, yeah. I looked at the current wording of the websites for each school, and the Center and Florence Sawyer have got exactly the same. Luther, Burbank, and Hale have got exactly the same. Mary Rowlandson's is a little bit longer, and they do talk about the requirement in some cases, and sometimes the discretionary part of it to have the fingerprints. So what I did at the direction of the policy subcommittee was come up with some wording that would be consistent so that all of the websites would have the exact same words on them. And it would be very clearly articulate these things. You were required to have the fingerprints. These are the things that don't require the fingerprints, including classroom volunteers, because that's the big one. And then also,
Just one thing, but this is not going to be attached to the policy. This is protocol that she's talking about now. The policy.
Policy is as
The
stands.
only thing that's changing the policy is adding those
Those
three
words.
those three words.
Okay.
right, so this will all be right there on the website. And then a third section that will say, if there's something that doesn't fit into one of these 2 categories, that at the discretion of the superintendent or her designee, these are the factors that she'll consider in deciding whether, if there's something new that comes up that doesn't fall into one of the categories. So if we, if this gets the okay, then that would be the same on the website of all the schools. And then the principals would know, the parents would know. And it would be clear to everyone that just to go into your classroom, that you don't need to spend the $35 and take the time. You just
That's
need to
good,
do it.
because we've gotten a lot of concerns about that.
Rightfully so.
And we shouldn't have to
It's
ask them
hard.
to do
It's a
that.
burden.
We want them to come to the schools. Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think that'll be a nice way to clear it all up, and I think the consistency across the district is just so important right now. But missing those 3 words probably didn't help matters.
So just for my own clarification, the district is going to have a protocol for for all of the buildings, and it's not going to be left up to the individual buildings as to
No,
what?
we want it clean right across the district so that everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
And we have it set up for the next admin meeting.
So do you want us to
Do you need a reading
adopt?
of this?
If you guys are ready to adopt it, then.
I'm good. If the policy's gone
Yes,
through this,
policy's
you've worked with the administration, it's scrubbed down, you have a game plan, I'm good with it. I don't know that it needs to go through Dorothy.
She doesn't do protocol?
This protocol is owned by the administration.
Yeah, we're fine with it, we really are. And those words, the three words, missing words should have been in there to begin with, so.
So I'll let you.
I move that we accept policy ADDA1.
Second.
Second, Jennifer. Anybody have any questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thanks, Nicole. Thank you very much.
And then if I could just ask, because this has been the bane of policy's existence for about 3 years, if we could just get an update after the admin meeting that the principals understand.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And you said you wrote something for the website?
I did.
So is that gonna get changed after you talk to them?
Well, it's certainly not my place to say, here it is, and let's do it.
Yeah.
But once it gets the approval of people whose place it is,
Okay.
then yes.
So, but they changed their own website, right? That's their.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we can follow up on that if that's.
As I say,
Yeah,
we actually have the ability to do it ourselves too.
All right. So the next item is the 2017-18 school year calendar, and hopefully we're at a point now where everything's going to be answered and we can formally adopt the calendar. But I know the one outstanding item was the late starts at the high school and the number of late starts. So
I'll start, and then Anne Marie's gonna kind of follow up. So we did a follow-up meeting after our last school committee meeting. Anne Marie, Dr. Graham, and I sat down and had a follow-up meeting. We agreed to do the 9, but with the pensions that just perhaps a snow day might happen, it might end up only being 8. And so we've got 9 in here. Thereafter we had the philosophical discussion, Anne Marie sat down with Perry and mapped out the late starts. And that's what you have presented before you. So Anne Marie, do you want to
That's right.
do a little bit follow-up on that?
So we eliminated 6 late starts on the calendar, and then added 3, so they moved around just a little bit. I think if you're meteorologically inclined, you might want to fire up your snowblower on those late start days, because it seems like 2 of the 3 this year were on late start days. So that it was a net loss of 3. So we went from 12 late starts at the high school to 9 late starts at the high school. We added.
Sure.
A key down at the bottom, you see it in your packet, so that PD, everybody's aware of PD, non-professional development,
Thank
and
you.
parent-teacher conferences, so that that's clear. And we've also, it's not on the paper, but we've also made an agreement that at the beginning of each year, I'll let the principals know what are the major religious holidays that will be happening during that year, so that big tests, field trips, special events at the school, that they can keep those in mind when they're doing their scheduling.
So the late starts. I know, and thank you for, I wasn't looking for you to reduce the number of late starts.
I was.
Okay, well that's good. I'm really looking for, again, what's the plan with the late starts? How is it driving student achievement?
I thought we had that discussion last time, though, and I thought that we knew that with the new principal coming in and such, I think that Dr. Graham can lay some things out, and I think the staff can look at it, but I think we also need to see how this goes with the new principal in place, too.
So I'll let Kathy, and then I'll...
Yeah, I'm just, and I'm sorry to be a broken record about things of this nature, but I agree with Lorraine about having what the vision is. How is it going to impact improving student learning? But the other thing I thought about afterwards is that, and I don't know that we've seen the high school improvement plan or any of the school improvement, and I understand why, and it's not a criticism, but I would like to see if what the goals are, if they're related to improving student learning, and I guess it would make sense for any work that comes out of these days to be linked to that, so you can see the alignment.
And I think it would be nice if there has to be a plan for it. I'm hesitant on this, but because I feel like it's kind of come up organically and just kind of gone along without being examined for effectiveness. But let's assume that there is a plan in place, there is a vision for these next year, there is a structure around it. Can we have those particular teachers and groups that are working on something come and share with us what it is that they're doing.
I'm sure that they would love to do that.
So we could understand how that's impacting.
That's probably a better way of approaching it in terms of this. I would say too, just for the purpose of updating the school committee, we're actually working on a district improvement plan. I want you to know.
Yay!
I think we talked about that at the beginning.
We've
when
been
we were trying to-
reviewing it and playing with different
Take care of
ideas and
goals and
such, and we've
stuff.
looked
Yeah.
at different formats, and so I want you to know that that's something that we're actually physically doing right now.
Yeah.
So this kind of thing kind of comes in behind that, do you know what I mean, to support it.
Yeah, but I guess, I'm sorry. And
No, that's okay.
I just want to be clear that it's great to have people come and make presentations to us, and it's valuable when the kids come, you know, that's important work. But it would be good to know what the plan is and what their goals are, so that when they come and present to us, or maybe they start with what their ideas are. It just concerns me that there wasn't the data, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of anecdotal data, but not presented or collected in a way that makes sense when you're looking at outcomes and work. I just,
So that would be, but you're-
I just want to make sure that what I'm saying makes sense. I think that this is time, and how do you?
it's time out of the classroom, and how
Right,
are we
do you measure
justifying the
effectiveness of
time
what
out of
you're
the classroom?
doing?
Right.
So that's,
And I think that with a new principal coming in, that's gotta be that's gotta be part and parcel of his or her responsibilities is, we've got these late starts, the school committee's gonna go nuts. Cause I'm not gonna vote for it again, I just can't, unless we know what the point is.
You don't have to vote for it now if you don't want to.
We actually do need to vote the calendar.
Yes, but if that's what I thought, if it's a philosophical discussion, then I feel uncomfortable having that without Dr. Graham in the room with
But
that.
we've heard from Dr. Graham for 3 years now on it, and I respect what he's provided to us. I think what we're looking for is something that ties directly to student learning. So let's leave it at that, and just know that while late starts in and of themselves are good, everybody likes them, I think there has to be a structure around it, to Kathy's point, and I think several of us have said that around the table for a while. And in order for us to get to the next year with late starts, it's got to be more than, my kids love sleeping in too, and I'm sure the teachers really enjoy it, but what's the outcome?
right, and I think that we're 2 years in, Perry won't be with us next year, but we'll have a new principal who
Right.
is. I think the fact that these are valued by teachers, it's time for them to work collaboratively and across discipline that they don't necessarily have. I'm not willing at this point to take it away. I just like to understand more about what the plan is and how they think it'll impact improving student learning.
Okay.
And I think as a principal, I think this would be something that would be attractive in terms of working in a district like this, to say, wow, especially at the high school level, it seems
Right.
to be easier to do.
There's great opportunity there to do some creative stuff.
So I'm not ready to yank it,
Right.
but I want to see.
I would like to see something like along the lines of, by the end of the year, we will have achieved this. Something, just some goal starting at the beginning, so there's something
Right.
measurable when they get to the end.
Right.
I recognize it can be very useful, but I'd like it to be something that is, this is where we want to be, this is how the process goes to get there.
Did they not, my understanding was that there were goals set by these groups, and I'm thinking now that you're not comfortable with those goals?
We didn't
or-
see it. Did we see
Okay.
it?
I don't know that there were.
recall. If there were goals, I don't recall seeing them. I saw the report that Dr. Graham presented a couple of meetings ago. So yeah, I
But
don't.
I don't think that report referenced particular goals and their achievement of, so.
There was a lot of, we had in general what the groups were doing.
Right.
But, I use the term, you begin with the end in mind, to your point. What do you hope to achieve? And even if you don't achieve your goals, what do you learn from the process, or what are you going to do? So that's
They might
the
learn that
model.
the goal was not what they really ended up wanting,
Yeah.
which is fine.
So
too,
there
right?
just needs to be some thought around it. I think that's the point.
So what
All
I
right.
Yeah.
put down was an overall mapping of goals and intended outcomes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that being
All
said,
right.
I will move the calendar.
And a second?
Second.
And just a question, did it turn out because of reducing several of these early,
Late starts?
rather, that there turned out to be enough for one different day at the end of the year because there's more hours in the school, or did it not add up?
No,
to
the
whole
late
day?
starts counted as a day.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, that's a great question though.
Any other questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
And before you move on,
Pardon?
you mentioned the district
Improvement
improvement
plan.
plan. I didn't think that was not a goal for this year.
No,
No.
So,
but we're working on it, I'm just saying.
I was gonna say, just wait for the goals for next year, that was one of the goals. I'm just wondering if there should be a timetable on that at all.
On
You're
what?
working on
The
it.
district improvement
The
plan.
district improvement plan.
Well, we're gonna go through goal setting this summer in tandem with the superintendent, and we'll come together like we do every summer.
If you think about it though, this was one of the things that we had talked about early on, was the notion that we wanted to have a revisit of our school improvement plans and our district improvement plan. The only reason I brought it up tonight was to say, actually, because we've been having meetings on it of late, to say, actually, we're
Yeah.
getting somewhere with this right now.
I just didn't know if it was on time for anyone.
Yeah, it will be. All right, and so our next agenda item is the Audit Advisory Committee, and the chair of the Audit Advisory Committee is in the house. Heather Hughes, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Mark, you're the school committee member on the Audit Advisory. Do you want to do a quick setup? Tell us where we are and turn it over to Heather.
We've been working on reviewing the applicants for the request for proposals for our auditor, and have a recommendation, and also we recently took a look at the actual audit report itself, and I think we'll be meeting with the auditor tomorrow, Thursday, and so I'm expecting the chair will have a sense of the committee about where we recommend on the auditor.
So with that, Heather Hughes, and just let us know what you would like from us.
Well, let me ask you first, because I know you guys are trying to get out of here. in an
No,
hour.
we're here, we've got executive session.
Okay, I can wind through the path of how we got to where we got, or I could start with the punchline. So do you guys have a preference? I know you will
I
rattle
love the
it up
story.
front.
I want to hear the
Yeah.
story too.
So I was born. So when we were last here, we talked about this bid list that we were putting together. We called out to a whole bunch of school districts that looked and felt similar to ours, just to say, hey, who are you using out there? And sadly, we learned it was really just two horses in the race, one of which was Powers and Sullivan, and the other was Moran Center. So we expanded that and said, okay, so what if we went to school districts that didn't necessarily, they weren't regional school districts, maybe they were smaller or bigger in cities, and we got a couple of additional names, but really not much. It just seems like there's maybe two names in town where we're concerned. So we went out to bid with 3 firms, and we also posted it on the Combine system. System? Yeah. What ended up coming in terms of responses was Powers and Sullivan, Lawrence and Heath, and then we had this lovely little firm in Maine.
In Maine.
Who, based on what we reviewed, I would essentially call non-responsive because they're not qualified. God bless, I'm glad that they gave it a go. In fact, as we were calling the references on Lawrence and Heath and Powers and Sullivan, one of my references was going through her recent process and said that this group had also applied, put an RFP in. So I think, you got to give them points for giving it a try. Right, they've got
That's not something.
3 employees, 2 of whom had the same name as the guy running the firm. 2 of those employees didn't have any experience anywhere else, so we just said, all right. But that brings us to really what the criteria was that we were looking at and making the determination, do they get to that next level or not. The first was focused and primarily on the technical components of it. So, the responsiveness to the RFP, the direct relevant experience, and this goes across, not just regional school districts, but just, schools that are kind of in our demographics. The size of the firm, the structure, the resources available, we felt it was important to have a, what I would call a bigger bench, so it's not just 2 or 3 employees in the space. We looked at the qualifications of the supervisors, the general direction that was provided to the staff while they were going through an audit, how comprehensive the audit plan was, and basically realistic timeframes. All of these things were taken into consideration, and then ultimately the references. And then, of course, part 2 was cost. Let's just get down to the dollars. So as I mentioned, we really were left with 2 firms, one of whom we're working with now, and the other who came in and did the forensic audit. So, when we looked at all of that, they all met the minimum qualifications to continue on. But in trying to figure out, really where these 2 differed from one another, from a Melanson Heath perspective, there was the benefit of having fresh eyes. These guys have, with fresh eyes comes, I guess, a credibility because they haven't actually been through this process before. Their bench was deeper than what we saw over in Powers and Sullivan. Not to say that Powers and Sullivan's bench wasn't adequate. It was just we had deeper. They had 75 associates versus the 26. Out of the 75, over 50 of them have government experience. On the Powers and Sullivan side, they're known quantity, and with known quantity just comes ease of doing business. So when they come in, they know the systems, and we don't have to retrain them. And there's, some benefit to that. They have also agreed to not increase the price from what we're having today, and they're going to hold that for the next 3 years. And that against Melanson Heath, there's a differential of about $10,000 over the course of 3 years.
Oh.
So it's not huge, and I say that lightly because it is huge in some aspects of it when you guys are trying to get through your budget with the challenges that you're having. But in the larger scheme of things, when you're weighing certain things against each other, I feel like the price, especially when you look at the ad hoc pricing that they do. So the ad hoc pricing for Melanson is actually much cheaper than it is for.
So give us some examples of what would be included in the ad hoc, because they may add up.
Yeah. So I don't think you typically have done ad hoc work before, but as I look at, one, there's a lot of caveats in these contracts that these auditors have. There's so many caveats that, even if there's a material finding that they don't catch, they're covered. They're not, based on the sample sizes and all that stuff. So, to some degree, I look at this and think, I don't know how much on their regular audit you guys would catch. Based on what you guys have learned from the recent forensic audit you had, you might be interested in having some ad hoc work, like say, help with creating certain types of reporting that your financial team, can look at to help the process, help your understanding, get a better sense of, there's the external audit, but technically speaking, we should also be doing internal auditing. And to have a check and balance outside of the actual day-to-day group that you have might not be a bad idea. Mm-hmm. So again, you haven't used it in the past, and as we were spitballing on, geez, what could you do? There are some options. Whether you feel like doing them or not, you should understand that, if you were to go heavier on the ad hoc work, the pricing would probably even out a bit, in my mind. But
well, that's interesting. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second, because there are several reports that we're going to be asking for, and if it's a burden, then that's something we should consider, because there are some reports that we said we wanted to be consistent to provide visibility into what's actually happening, so that we also can start to watch trends to see where there's opportunity. So that's really helpful. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. That's essentially the differences between the two. So there's all 3 of us, I would say it's a unanimous vote, but there's 3 of us on the committee. But we were unanimous in our recommendation to the committee here today from Melanson and Heath. As we were looking at it, we felt that their deeper bench and the benefit of fresh eyes. And I say that, just from the perspective that you have a better shot of potentially them finding something because they've got no experience in this space. So we weighed those 2 things against, we felt that that offset the $10,000 differential. And again, that's over 3 years. It's not each year. So that would be our recommendation. Let me pause and see if you guys have any questions.
Lynn?
How many ad hoc items would we have to do before it pretty much evened out?
Well, so that is a great question, and it's really predicated on how significant your asks are. So I would have to,
So
you
it's
had
an hourly
examples in the
rate?
past, sorry?
It's an hourly rate?
Yeah,
Basically?
and the
Okay.
hourly rate is, again, it's predicated on how many hours they have to put into it. So once they create a report, like I'm thinking of, the financial committee, if there's something like on a quarterly basis that you guys are looking for, and again, it's not that the internal group can't do it, it's just that it's a little bit of a burden right now based on the staffing. This might be something that they can, either create and maybe set it and forget it, or it's just something that, maybe the startup costs are.
Maybe they can
but-
create it and we can duplicate it so that they give you the structure.
Yeah.
Or
it's-
maybe they could even do it within our system, come in and do it in our system.
Right. So the way I was thinking about it, because it's a great question, is you guys have never used it in the past. So hypothetically speaking, if you were to employ it now, it probably wouldn't be on an outrageous basis. So I don't know that it would make up some of that $10,000, but probably not all of it. I just know that when you look at ad hoc work on the other side, it would be more costly.
Mhm.
And it's okay. But I think you probably have to do a significant amount of ad hoc requests or sizable asks for you to make up the difference if you were planning to. And I'm not trying to, dissuade you from looking at that, but I think, it's just a data point. So.
So I'm going to ask for questions around the table. Before I do that, though, I'd like to get perspective on what was figured into this coming year's budget and where are we? Based on whatever the number is right now, Heather, for FY 18, 19, 20. If you've just got FY 18, that would be helpful. And then Pat, if you could share with us what we spent before and then what you figured into the budget, because the last thing I want to do is start to bundle more money.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think that I've covered it in the budget as far as the cost, if we were to go
Okay.
with Melanson and Heath.
Oh, so you already know that?
Well, we knew that we were gonna go out to bid.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You have been involved.
Yes,
Okay.
I have been
Okay, good.
involved.
I'm feeling good about
Right.
that.
I've been meeting with the advisory.
I didn't know that. All
We've
right.
been asking her all sorts of internal questions, to help us
Thank
get
you.
calibrated. So the
right.
first year, the price differential would be $2,800. So Powers and Sullivan is looking at $28,900 year over year over 3 years. And then Melanson and Heath starts at $31,700 and then does basically a 2% increase each year. So a COLA adjustment, I guess. But,
Can we negotiate that?
well, actually was what I was going to ask. We might be able to go back to Melanson and see if there's something that we can negotiate. And maybe part of that negotiation is committing to doing some level of ad hoc reporting on the side. Commit to take the money that we would spend here and maybe push it into something else that would benefit the school.
Yep. Yep. That's a good idea.
Have we recognized areas, specific areas that we might want to use that?
Well, actually, we're waiting for the list from the Finance Subcommittee to come forward to us for their recommendation of regular reporting.
Yep.
And I know that you guys have been working on that. So when that comes forward, then it comes to the school committee, because we've got to make a decision on, you guys the Finance Committee makes the recommendation for which reports they think are the most critical. And then we would have to vote on that if it's an additional fee, right? And I think that if you need an answer right away, we're not going to be able to do that. Because
We don't need it straight away. I mean, I think, based on the plans, we were not thinking, to be honest, this is a boon, us being here now. We were thinking we were going to have to wait another 2 weeks, and we were comfortable with that. So if there's time that you need to look at things, that's fine. If there's anything that we can do to help you in that process, let us know.
So maybe do you think you guys would be ready to bring forward your recommended reports?
We were hoping to be able to meet with Power and Sullivan to go over last year's audit before we, right? What we're thinking of, or-
Yeah, but I don't think you need
Right
Powers
here.
and Sullivan for this particular.
Well, mostly for if you want us to recommend reports or possible ad hoc work, we still need, I think by reviewing last year's audit will help. We have some questions for them on perhaps why certain things weren't caught in the audit, so therefore what maybe would be an ad hoc process that would catch those things. You know, as we found in the forensic audit, there are things that the regular audit doesn't find.
Right.
So,
Right, and you can't
questions
expect
on how-
a typical annual audit.
right.
Because it's
catch
cursory.
those things. So maybe those things,
yeah.
one of the things I'm fairly confident the finance subcommittee will request is a report out on the revolving funds. Certainly
Yes.
the cost centers, the, you know, extended day, pre-K, preschool, all of those, food services, athletics. Yes. So all those, I know
That's
those
definitely
will
one
be-
we've talked about consistently that we all want to see, so.
Yes.
So we, not to steal the finance subcommittee
Oh, you can
thunder.
steal.
Yeah, so tomorrow, because we were talking about the same thing last week as we were looking at the reports and saying, okay, let's get, you know, the firm in here. One of the questions we were gonna ask was, hey, here's what came out of the forensic report. Tell me why it didn't get caught here. And, you know, I can tell you by looking at the contract why. 'Cause
Right.
there's so many caveats on all of that. But my ask is, is it possible to have somebody from the committee come tomorrow night so that maybe you can pre-vet? Oh,
He's on the finance subcommittee. He does
Alright, so
double duty.
Could you, I guess, give
I'll be
you?
there.
Well, or that was part of my hope.
But
is that
perhaps
he
better
would-
said that others are welcome, I guess.
But then we'd have quorum for finance subcommittee. We can't
It's
do
true,
that.
you have to be in the audience, I
I'd have to be in
guess.
the audience. I wouldn't be able to ask any questions.
So can we funnel the questions you might be, you know, holding
I can send-
for
yeah.
him to our representative?
They were discussed in the finance committee meeting this morning, and they are substantially
Similar.
similar or the same questions that the advisory committee as well has, much in
So-
alignment.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same. So even if you guys meet and report, we meet next Wednesday, Wednesday after that. But so we have 2 meetings before the next school committee meeting. So
The finance subcommittee. does,
yeah, we meet at 8:30 on Wednesday mornings.
So you feel like to make this decision, you would want to know the extent of the reporting? Is that-
Well, I want to be
Just an
careful
idea.
here because, I mean, we have, some of us, I'll throw my name in the hat there, have a tendency to go down some pretty dark alleyways and sit there for a while. And I don't think we want to, I think we want to ask the salient questions. I think we want to understand the scope of the work that we would like to have done. We are not going to be able to actually create the yarn. So,
But let me ask this question, and I'm not trying to force an answer, but if hypothetically you came out of that meeting and said, you know what, there's no reports that we would want to ask.
oh,
for,
but
there's
we
nothing
know
ad
that's
hoc."
not true.
But hypothetically,
Yeah.
would that then sway
Sway
your
the
decision to
decision,
go
so-
with Powers?
Well, there's
and
also
Sullivan?
an internal conversation. Perhaps our staff is capable enough, and the creating of the reports is an iterative process, and over the course of several months or quarters, we will figure out exactly what we want out of the reports. And it
But
could-
why
it
waste the
may-
time?
It may or may
Right.
not be the case that
And I
that
guess,
we want to bring in an outside organization.
right, so whatever the reason might be, I guess what I'm just trying to understand is this decision point that you guys have, is it simply about would we employ them for ad hoc work or not? And if the answer is no, then we go to the cheaper alternative, or are you thinking something different?
I mean,
I'm not ready to make a recommendation like this.
when do you need a decision?
Well, I keep looking over here because this is the person that it impacts. And if hypothetically you're going with Melanson, there's going to be some ramp for that
Right.
staff coming in. So she's going to want as much runway as possible. So I would think that we would really, at the latest, want to get started on this audit in May, which I think they were suggesting anyways, right? So they're probably preparing for that. But we would probably need at least a week or two, probably 2 in advance of that, like mid-April, to make this decision.
So we have a meeting on April 12th. What would the committee need?
Well, I think the finance subcommittee, I feel, would be ready to make a recommendation at that point.
Okay, all right, so then we can count on that, and then Alita, and Brooke, we
We
would
have
want
2
to put
meetings
that on the
Right
agenda.
out before that, so.
Yeah, that's great.
And I do have sort of general comments this is a professional organization with similarities to a lawyer. And generally, when you engage a lawyer, for that matter an accountant, it could be that the values that you see in the organization overrule the price to some limited extent. And it could be that a few $1,000s a year is not significant in this decision.
Well, then you can make it up in time, right?
This body to make. And I just plant the seed for that point of view.
And I can understand that, and especially given the fact that while they're different units, the forensic audit unit is different than the annual audit unit at Melanson Heath, but there was so much done that they do talk to each other, so I can certainly understand. What are your thoughts? You sit on the audit advisory.
I am, as Heather described, I find the depth of Melanson Heath's staff appealing and useful, and it means that they have internal resources when they run into troubles or need advice internally. So I find that very appealing, and I admit that I found our experience, their different division or department of forensic audit, to be a useful experience. And then third, despite that there is a sort of ramp-up time for a new organization, I think it is healthy for any organization to have a new auditor now and again.
Right.
So those are the three major things that lead me in that direction. I'm not adamant. There's nothing wrong with Powers and Sullivan. They're a capable firm and they do very good work. And so it's not a strong advocacy, but it's a leaning point of view.
Okay. All right, so why don't we do that then? We'll have the Finance Subcommittee do their thing, and then are you going to be able to come back?
Yeah, sure.
On the 12th.
Absolutely.
And we'll try to get you on early.
Okay.
And then just on behalf of the full committee, to you and the other folks on the audit advisory, but specifically to you for stepping in and taking this on. It's critical. I mean, we saw the immense amount of work that went on with the audit, the forensic audit. I think that experience helped all of us learn a whole lot more. It was like drinking from the fire hose. And there was immense amount of work that went in for the administration too. So Heather, what you've done in leading the group is really invaluable. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, we'll put you on for the 12th.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we've got one subcommittee report, finance, and who's going to do that? In the absence of.
our chair. Mark can help. So we met today and we did approve some minutes that I know some of them have gotten up. Some of them will be up shortly.
Okay, so let's do this and just get it done. The minutes need to be up by the end of this week because they were supposed to be
Well,
up
they
by
can't be
today.
up at the end of this week because we have to vote them, and the earliest we can vote them is next Wednesday.
Is when?
Next Wednesday.
So they all have to be done by next Wednesday. That's good. That works.
Okay.
So
They
can
could be
you?
put up in draft
They could be
form.
put up.
Yes.
Unapproved
Yes.
form.
They need to be on.
Unofficial. That could be done as well.
All of them, right? Commitment?
Work will be done.
Thank you. Okay, going on.
And basically, we started talking about our goals, where we are getting, how we're getting to our goals. We discussed with the administration the budget calendar, the budget book, both of which have significant work's been done on. They're going to provide us with a draft of the budget book.
When is that?
Next week. Next week.
Oh,
So
terrific.
We'll be able to review that at the meeting next Wednesday. It's not finished because we haven't seen, there's some things we might want in it that aren't in our, it's the first draft. And the budget calendar, we discussed things like what we can do front end starting September, what we can get out of the way so that we're not discussing them in January when we're trying to discuss the actual numbers.
Yeah.
And making a policy. And then policy also reaches back, because we do need to come up with a list of policies, financial policies. We discussed the improvement plan, right? So there's still phase 2 we need to
This is the action, the corrective action.
The
plan.
corrective action,
plan,
yeah,
right.
we're gonna do that in
We
the
need-
next meeting.
So there's phase 2, and then there's the phase 3, which is predominantly sped. And a lot of the policies are going to come out of that.
Good, great.
So we should have something for policy shortly.
Great.
It was a very productive meeting again this morning. I think our meetings, all of the.
It was 2 hours.
All the subcommittee meetings are incredibly invaluable meetings.
Good.
But these are the goals for next year. right?
No, this is this year.
No, this is,
Yeah,
yeah, we're just.
This is
We were
year's.
reviewing where we are in our goals, and like all the goals, the forensic audit, things budget-wise.
Chewed up everybody's
chewed up
time.
a lot of time. But I think we can at least get there with the preliminary budget calendar. The budget calendar is going to be preliminary because it's the first time. Some things might not work where we think they should.
Yeah,
And so it's going to be a work in progress.
but it gives
we
us a
should
place
have
to
something.
start from, which we've never had before, so that's great. Thank you for that. I think that's important too, so that we can plan, and like folks who come to the meetings who have comments to make, they can plan, and we know when things are happening.
Right.
Okay,
And
great.
when to pay attention, and if you have a particular interest, to pay
That's
attention in
great.
September.
I'm glad to hear it,
So-
thanks. All right, I don't see any other reports, but if there are, Kathy, Nicole?
Nope.
All right, so we're moving on. Correspondence. So, I know that there was a group of folks that met with all 3 STO reps last week. My understanding was that was open to folks in all 3 towns, but it sounds like you only got folks from STO, and specifically around the increases on pre-K. I've heard from a couple of people. Now, I will also say I've heard from folks who have said the complete opposite about the increases, but that's the nature of the work, right? You've got different constituents with different concerns. So I think it's just, it's only fair to represent that as well. But for those who were at that meeting, if there are any high level, I don't want to get into a 30-minute conversation about it, but salient points that you think you'd like to share with the rest of us, feel free to do that.
Well, there was about 4 points that came up. Communication. I don't know if you know about in the past, you to go back. The superintendent did not do well with communication on their reports. So just, it came up communication, so they just want better communication. And they talked about ways maybe to do it, they didn't have the solutions, but we told them they were unaware, a lot of them were unaware that on the website of the school committee, the agenda is there, the minutes are there, the meeting packets are there, so if they want to follow along, it's there. And they didn't seem to be aware of that. Some of them might have been, but people were asking. So there was that one. They were worried about kindergarten, and they had one recommendation, and that was, and you guys already solved it, could you talk about it before the budget and before they get the application, so that they know what's going on? And then they wanted to know about high school. They were just wondering when the high school was going to hit. And those were the big points.
What about the high school, and I'm sorry, building?
What are we gonna do with the building?
There's a lot of talk about it. They don't know, nobody knows what's going on with it. When is
Well,
that going to hit?
yeah. Well, they don't know what's going on with it. We've had lots of conversation, but that's why we're building the small group of us who's going to put together the structure, the talking points, so that we can go out to all 3 towns, have the conversation, and that will happen. I'm hoping to target early fall to start having those conversations, but there's work that has to be done, in June and a little bit into the summer in order to build all the materials and structure everything. And I promise you that we're not going to be spending a 3rd summer weekly meetings this year. We'll do a more traditional structure for that. But anyway, that was a great update. Nicole, Mark, anything to add?
No, I thought it was a very productive, just, not that anything came out of it as far as, a list of to-dos, but meeting the community, hearing them out, and I think it was my impression that everyone left there at least understanding better
Oh, that's
than
good.
when they came in.
But it's a shame it was just Stowe, because I know someone had told me that it was announced somewhere that it was all 3 towns.
I have no
Okay.
idea.
Well, thank you all for doing that. Mark?
I think there is some legitimate grievance that our previous superintendent has promised various things that were not in his ability to fulfill on, partially because they were the responsibility of the school committee.
Well, and that's hard.
I think we were able to talk through that and at least settle the expectations in that room. And then it's now up to the people at this table, including the superintendent, to continue to communicate what in fact is happening next and what we're not certain of next.
Right.
So.
I think the challenge too is that if you're not really aware of what goes on in a school committee and what the school committee does and how do you follow along and where do you find the information, and we've consistently said it's all out there, but and I talked to the superintendent about this a little bit as far as and even the STO reps, is there a way for us to get the agenda to the town clerks or whoever is in the town and put it on their listserv so they can push it out so that any resident, because it's not just parents that we need to make sure see these agendas, it's the entire community, they make the decisions, right? I think, and then I don't know if it makes sense specifically for parents to ask the principals, would they consider in their electronic newsletters just putting a link to the school committee website? I don't want to get into, taking over a principal's, that's not the point, but even if it's just a little link.
I noticed on the Lancaster Town website, there is a link to the school committee.
Right.
Where you can get everything that you need. I personally would be reluctant to ask the principals to do that.
Just to put a link on their newsletter?
Yeah, personally, yes, that is my bias.
I guess it's up to the
Yeah,
superintendent.
it is, but it's just,
It actually makes more sense, because the link is already there at the high school. I mean, when you pull into any of the websites, the school committee's right there. It's their own tab, everything's right there. But to have the clerk do it maybe, or you can have it in the newspaper.
But it's
because
automatically linked, if like in Lancaster, with all the town
So you can
departments,
see
it
it.
has the school department.
Yeah.
You click on it and boom, you're at the webpage. And I don't know if Stowe and Bolton have that as well.
I guess the only reason I suggested is because I don't know if new parents coming into the district even know where to start. But again, I'll let the superintendent.
I'd be willing to talk to the town clerk just so that she would post it on meetings happening, it's the current
Oh,
meetings.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, no,
I
that
mean,
was.
there's no reason why the school committee shouldn't be listed. It is a town.
Yep.
Right.
They are
So-
sent the agenda.
Say
They
again?
are
They
sent the agenda.
So maybe we could just ask them if they could help
Just
make
post
it
it. I mean,
more visible.
It's not a requirement because the school posts it, but it is, I mean, it can go on the front page just as a relevant meeting.
Okay, great. All right, anything else for correspondence? And thank you again. Thank you. Okay, items to be considered for next. Of course, Alita, I did not bring my draft. So I know we're going to have the audit advisory back and, right?
It's quite a full agenda, the April 12th.
I know, we got to be really,
Yeah,
efficient.
April
Is April
12th.
12th the next one?
yeah, which is why
We
this
have the
one was,
workshop.
pardon?
The workshop.
The workshop is also
We
there
have
too,
the
yeah.
Dorothy workshop, which is huge.
Your next 3 meetings actually are quite full. I'm just letting you, just reminding you,
Yeah.
the next 3 meetings.
Bus contract is on there.
The bus
Bus
contract.
contract.
Oh, can we make sure all that
Oh, yeah.
stuff gets in the packet early? So we have time to review it, because I gotta tell you, I'm not gonna be able to review it in a day or two.
There's an update on that.
Okay.
I think Pat has an update on the bus.
The bus contract we're gonna rebid the contract.
I thought you were anyway. Oh,
This is brand
We're gonna
spanking,
rebid it.
this is new effective today.
okay.
So I
Okay,
think that
based on the conversation that we had this morning in Finance Committee.
it led us down some different pathways.
Okay.
Oh, wow. So
Okay.
it should be available by the 18th, we should have all the bids in and
Okay.
have an idea.
So I'll move it to the 26th.
If that works. Oh, if that works. Yeah.
Move it to the 26th.
Yeah. All right, and
I
then
forgot to mention that.
if there
We
are
discussed
any,
that today.
if there are,
That was also one of our topics.
if there are any other burning issues that we absolutely have to get on the agenda, let me know, but I think we're chock full. Nicole,
Can I just say something to Mr. Mahoney, to his point?
in the middle of the school committee meeting,
He was asking us to talk about agenda items for the future, And just talking about our particular meeting, I would, I don't want to speak for the Lancaster or Bolton reps, but our meeting happened very organically and was a very, I thought, positive meeting. So you might want to talk to your fellow neighbors and maybe put something like that together. I don't think revisiting a vote at this point is going to happen without something like that.
so I'm not even sure why that came up, but.
And we can talk about it later.
To that point, I did receive an email today. I haven't had a chance to go through it in details, but there is a resident that asked if we would be interested in meeting, and Neil and I will coordinate, although I'm traveling next week, so it will be for a couple of weeks. So anyway, all right, I think that is good. I think, given that, we are all set, and we,
Consent agenda also?
oh, consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, Alina, thank you. Did you folks look at, there's 2 sets of draft meetings for the March 15th meeting. And just make sure you've reviewed, I'm hoping you reviewed the one with the edits. If you have any questions, concerns, speak now or forever.
Is that the ones we
I'm just going
discussed?
to recuse myself from
The other
doing
ones?
this.
Yeah.
Are we good?
We got, they were mine.
All right, so consider those approved, and the warrant of March 31st, consider that approved. Thanks, Alina.
Make sure
Appreciate
everybody
that.
signs the warrants.
And we will make sure we sign the warrants, and I think that concludes this portion of the meeting.
I will move, you ready?
Yep, we are
Enter
ready.
Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Section 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for units A and C if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Our town representative from the 3 towns will join us, Mr. Lowe, and the superintendent,
And Anne Marie.
and Anne Marie.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call. Nicole?
Aye.
Kathy?
Yes.
Lorraine, yes. Mark?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yep.
And Jennifer? Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Miss Abby.